Hello friends. What happens when the quicksilver mind of a Gemini man meets the grounded heart of a Virgo woman? At first glance, you might think they live in completely different universes. He's the restless dreamer chasing ideas, while she's the perfectionist carefully stitching reality together. But as with most love stories written in the stars, the truth is far more layered, complicated, and fascinating. Let's take a deep dive into their compatibility, peeling back each layer, from the spark of attraction to the lifelong journey of love. Chemistry. Initial attraction. When we speak of the chemistry between a Gemini man and a Virgo woman, we are not talking about the kind of instant, fiery explosion that burns itself out in a matter of days. Instead, theirs is a subtler, more intricate form of alchemy, one that draws them together with a slow but magnetic pull, like the gravity between two celestial bodies circling in careful orbit. To watch it unfold is to see two different worlds collide, one defined by restless curiosity and quicksilver charm, the other by quiet observation and a depth that is both mysterious and grounding. The Gemini man walks into a room as if he were born to disrupt its rhythm. There's a mischievous sparkle in his eyes, the kind that suggests he knows a dozen jokes he hasn't told yet, and 3 stories that may or may not be true but will certainly be entertaining. His presence is rarely still. Even when standing, there's a sense of movement around him, as though his mind is too quick for his body to contain. He gestures when he speaks, his words tumbling out rapidly, leaping from one subject to another with the agility of a cat darting across rooftops. People notice him not because he forces their attention, but because his energy is electric, vibrant, unpredictable, and strangely inviting. The Virgo woman notices all of this, but unlike others who might be swept away instantly, she does not surrender to the whirlwind. She is deliberate, her gaze sharp and intelligent, dissecting him silently before she even considers engaging. Virgo women are not ones to hand out interest easily. They hold it close, like a precious resource, and offer it only to those who prove themselves worthy. And so she watches. She sees the way he interacts with others, how his humor bends toward the playful rather than the cruel, how his curiosity spills into every conversation. She notes his quick tongue, his charming wit, but also the faint flicker of restlessness in his eyes, the part of him that never seems satisfied, never truly still. To the Gemini man, the Virgo woman is not immediately accessible. She doesn't laugh too loudly at his jokes, nor does she make herself the center of attention. In fact, her elegance comes precisely from her restraint. There is something refined about the way she carries herself, her posture, her careful choice of words, the way her silence speaks louder than the chatter of the room. And that silence drives him wild. For a man who thrives on the game of words, her quiet composure feels like an unsolved riddle. He wants to know what she's thinking, what lies behind those calm, intelligent eyes. She becomes, in that instant, a mystery he feels compelled to solve. Their attraction is born in contrasts. He is light, she is earth. He is restless motion, she is considered stillness. And yet, the very differences that might seem to divide them instead create a magnetic tension that neither can easily ignore. For the Virgo woman, the attraction grows like the careful lighting of a candle. She does not fall for him at once. She dissects, she questions, she challenges herself to remain objective. But slowly, she begins to feel the warmth of his curiosity spilling into her own world. She realizes that behind the playful banter is a mind that refuses to grow stagnant. He wants to know everything. About people, about ideas, about the world. And while his knowledge may at times be scattered or incomplete, his hunger for understanding is genuine. That hunger resonates with her, because beneath her calm surface, the Virgo woman too craves growth and discovery, though hers comes in the form of discipline, research, and careful refinement. For the Gemini man, the attraction is immediate and layered. Yes, he notices her beauty, the way she seems untouched by the chaos around her, but it's her composure that strikes him the hardest. She is not impressed by mere charm, and that unsettles him in the most exciting way. He is used to winning people over quickly, to dazzling them with words, to being the spark that lights the fire. But with her, his spark lands on something denser, something less combustible, and that very resistance makes him lean in further. He wants her attention, her approval, her laughter, not because it's easily given, but because it's hard-earned. Imagine the scene of their first true meeting. He leans in with an infectious grin, telling a story about how he once found himself stranded in a foreign city with nothing but a phrasebook and his ability to charm strangers into helping him. The table laughs, and even the Virgo woman, against her better judgment, allows herself a small smile. She catches herself, almost annoyed that he managed to slip past her guard so easily. But there it is, a spark of amusement she cannot deny. He notices instantly, storing it away like a small victory. For him, that smile is a door slightly opened. For her, it is the beginning of realizing that maybe, just maybe, there's more to him than endless chatter. Yet, beneath the surface, the attraction is not merely about entertainment or admiration. It's about balance. The Virgo woman, though careful and structured, sometimes feels weighed down by her own need for perfection, her constant analysis, her endless search for order. The Gemini man, with his boundless energy and playful spontaneity, represents freedom, an invitation to let go, to embrace imperfection, to laugh at the unpredictability of life. He is, in a sense, the fresh air she sometimes forgets she needs. At the same time, he is often lost in his whirlwind, chasing so many thoughts that he risks scattering himself into nothingness. She, with her grounded nature, offers him something he rarely finds: stability. Not the kind that bores him, but the kind that quietly anchors him, reminding him that not all beauty is fleeting, that some things grow stronger the longer you stay with them. To him, she is not a cage, but a harbor, a place to rest before his next adventure, and perhaps, if he allows himself, a reason not to wander so endlessly. It is in this interplay, his spark and her steadiness, his curiosity and her discernment, that the chemistry between them flourishes. They are not alike, not by any stretch, but in their differences lies the exact tension that fuels attraction. He lights her world with possibility, she grounds his with meaning. And in those first encounters, when they are still testing each other's rhythms, there is an undeniable sense that something larger than either of them is at work. Something written in the stars, something whispering that perhaps this is not just a fleeting meeting of opposites, but the beginning of a story worth telling. The real question, however, lingers in the silence between their laughter and their glances. Will these differences remain alluring, or will they become obstacles once the novelty fades? For now, it doesn't matter. For now, the Gemini man is entranced by the Virgo woman's quiet power, and she is quietly intrigued by his restless spirit. And in that space between certainty and possibility, a spark forms, not explosive, but steady, promising, and infinitely compelling. Emotional dynamics. This is where things get truly fascinating, because emotions are not a simple, steady current between a Gemini man and a Virgo woman. They are a storm of contrasts, a delicate dance of impulses and desires, a meeting of air and earth that can either form fertile ground or scatter dust into the wind. The Gemini man experiences emotions the way he experiences life itself, rapidly, vividly, and sometimes fleetingly. His feelings can be compared to candle flames flickering in a drafty room, one moment glowing with warmth, the next dimmed by a passing breeze, always moving, always shifting. When he is happy, his joy is infectious, radiating through his words and gestures. He laughs loudly, throws himself into experiences, and makes everyone around him feel lighter just by being in his orbit. But when sadness or uncertainty strikes, he doesn't linger long enough to explore it in depth. Instead, he flits to the next thought, the next distraction, as if emotions are stations on a radio dial and he cannot stay tuned in for too long without growing restless. The Virgo woman, by contrast, approaches emotions with precision, with seriousness, and with a sense of responsibility. For her, feelings are not fleeting sparks. They are signals, clues, codes to be deciphered. She wants clarity. She wants to name the emotion, categorize it, understand it, and then, if possible, heal it. If her partner feels lost, she instinctively assumes the role of the fixer, the healer, the steady hand that can bring him back to solid ground. She does not run from emotions the way he sometimes does. Instead, she leans into them, analyzes them, and works to restore balance. At first, this seems like a perfect complement. The Gemini man's fluctuating moods find in the Virgo woman a stabilizing force, someone who doesn't dismiss them but instead seeks to help. And the Virgo woman, who often feels her own emotions intensely but keeps them hidden beneath layers of control, admires the Gemini man's openness, his willingness to express without shame. But here lies the complexity. He does not always want to be fixed. He does not always want clarity. Sometimes, he wants to simply float, to let his feelings pass like clouds across the sky, without dissecting them, without categorizing them, without anyone trying to impose order on his chaos. This difference can create tension. She gives him her best efforts, her love expressed through care and practical solutions, only to feel frustrated when he resists. She wonders why her steady support isn't enough to calm him, why he seems to slip through her fingers like water no matter how tightly she tries to hold him. He, in turn, begins to feel suffocated by her insistence on improvement, her constant need to adjust, refine, or analyze his every shift in mood. To him, her love can feel more like a corrective process than simple acceptance. To her, his resistance feels like rejection of her care, a denial of her devotion. Yet it is precisely in this friction that growth lies. If the Virgo woman can learn that not every emotion needs to be solved, that sometimes the greatest gift is simply sitting with him in silence while his moods ebb and flow, she begins to release her need for control. She discovers that love can mean presence rather than correction, that her value lies not only in fixing but in being. And the Gemini man, in turn, learns from her a kind of emotional discipline he would never develop on his own. She teaches him to slow down, to linger with his heart, to not treat every flicker of feeling as disposable. In her steadiness, he discovers that there is beauty in depth, in truly understanding oneself rather than constantly moving on. Imagine a moment between them. The Gemini man is restless, pacing, speaking quickly about his fears of being trapped, of losing his freedom, of life narrowing in on him. The Virgo woman listens, resisting the urge to offer solutions, simply watching him unravel his own thoughts. Finally, she takes his hand, not to stop him, not to correct him, but to anchor him. "It's okay to feel this," she says softly. And for once, he pauses, breathes, and lets her words settle. In that moment, the dynamic between them shifts. He learns that her care is not meant to cage him, and she learns that her love doesn't always have to arrive in the form of a solution. Of course, the opposite moment exists too. The Virgo woman, overwhelmed by her own perfectionism, finds herself spiraling into self-criticism. She wonders if she has done enough, if she has said the right things, if she has kept the relationship balanced. The Gemini man, who dislikes heaviness, responds not with analysis but with levity. He cracks a joke, makes her laugh despite herself, and pulls her away from the tight grip of her own mind. "You're allowed to be imperfect," he reminds her with a grin. "That's the fun part." And suddenly, the weight lifts. In that laughter, she rediscovers the freedom she forgets to give herself. Together, when balanced, they create an emotional rhythm that is both grounding and exhilarating. She brings the depth, he brings the lightness. She teaches him the importance of patience and introspection. He teaches her the joy of spontaneity and acceptance. Their emotional connection becomes not a battle of differences, but a symphony of contrasts, each one filling in what the other lacks. The danger, of course, is when balance is lost. If she leans too far into her need for control, he will rebel, retreating into detachment and leaving her feeling abandoned. If he leans too far into avoidance, she will feel unappreciated, burdened by carrying all the weight of emotional labor. But when they remain aware of these tendencies, when they consciously choose to embrace their differences rather than fight them, something truly rare happens. They grow, not just as a couple, but as individuals. For the Virgo woman, being with a Gemini man teaches her that life's messiness is not a flaw to be corrected but a natural part of existence. For the Gemini man, loving a Virgo woman shows him that emotions are not just fleeting sparks but meaningful forces worth exploring. And in that shared growth, in that constant push and pull between order and chaos, they discover that love is not about sameness, it is about balance. Their emotional dynamics are not easy. They demand patience, humility, and a willingness to let go of old habits. But when they succeed, when they truly listen and learn, they find themselves in a bond that is both challenging and deeply transformative. It is a love that teaches them to stretch, to bend, and to embrace sides of themselves they might otherwise have ignored. And that, perhaps, is the deepest beauty of all. Long-term compatibility. So, do they make it in the long run? That's the question every curious heart asks when two such fundamentally different souls come together. The Gemini man, mercurial and restless, chasing winds of change, and the Virgo woman, practical and steady, weaving order into the fabric of her life. Long-term compatibility between them is not a simple yes or no, but rather a living answer that shifts with time, effort, and mutual growth. It depends on whether they are willing to adapt, to bend without breaking, and to recognize that love is less about perfection than it is about persistence. For the Virgo woman, the idea of love that lasts is tied to predictability, commitment, and a shared roadmap for the future. She wants to know where she is headed, to have security under her feet, to trust that the person walking beside her will still be there when storms come. To her, stability is not boring, it is the foundation upon which love can flourish. She thrives on routine, on building habits that strengthen connection, on being able to depend on someone's word. The Gemini man, however, views long-term love through a different lens. His heart beats for the thrill of new experiences, for the unexpected twist in the story, for change that keeps life fresh. He is not wired to see repetition as comfort. To him, it can feel like a cage. Where Virgo finds safety in plans, Gemini finds freedom in possibility. He does not want to lose his sense of adventure, even when committed. And here lies the paradox. What she calls consistency, he may call monotony. What he calls spontaneity, she may call instability. This difference, if left unchecked, can create years of frustration. She may see him as unreliable, flitting from one idea or desire to another without finishing what he starts. He may see her as rigid, overly critical, forever trying to polish life into a flawless diamond instead of enjoying it in its raw form. But here's the twist, and it is the saving grace of their union. The very qualities that clash so loudly in the short term can become their greatest asset in the long term. His unpredictability has the power to stretch her world wider than she imagined, introducing her to experiences she would never have pursued on her own. He can remind her that joy does not always need a plan, that sometimes the most beautiful moments are the ones that happen by accident. And her reliability can become the anchor he never knew he needed, grounding him in a reality that keeps him from drifting aimlessly. With her, he can discover the deeper satisfaction of commitment, the kind of fulfillment that comes not from chasing everything, but from choosing something, and staying. Picture a long marriage between them. At first, she is exasperated by his tendency to cancel plans last minute to chase a whim. He is annoyed by her endless lists, her insistence on cleaning up every mess, even the emotional ones. Yet, as years pass, they begin to see each other differently. She notices that his spontaneity often brings laughter into their home, that his quick decisions sometimes lead them to adventures that become their most cherished memories. He notices that her lists and plans, while at times suffocating, also give them structure that protects their love from chaos. Slowly, they begin to weave their differences together, like two contrasting colors that, when blended, create something entirely new. Their long-term success requires one key element: compromise. For the Virgo woman, this means loosening her grip on perfection, allowing him space to breathe, to be imperfect, to make mistakes without feeling like he has failed her expectations. For the Gemini man, it means recognizing that freedom without responsibility is empty, that true love demands effort and constancy, even when novelty wears off. Each must sacrifice a little of their nature, but in doing so, they both expand. She learns that flexibility does not mean chaos, it means resilience. He learns that commitment does not mean imprisonment, it means trust. The metaphor that suits them best is a dance. In the long run, their relationship must become a rhythm of give and take, lead and follow. Sometimes he leads, twirling her into a spontaneous trip, a last-minute dinner under the stars, a reckless idea that makes her laugh until she forgets her worries. Sometimes she leads, steadying their pace, reminding him of responsibilities, grounding their love in traditions and rituals that keep it safe. The success of their union depends not on who leads more, but on whether they can hear the same music, adjust to the same rhythm, and allow themselves to be both teacher and student in love. There will be difficult years, no compatibility is without them. Times when she feels exhausted by his inconsistency, times when he feels drained by her criticism. But in those moments, they must return to the truth that first drew them together, the fact that he brought levity to her seriousness, and she brought depth to his lightness. If they can remember that they are not meant to change each other into copies of themselves, but rather to balance each other, then longevity becomes not only possible but deeply rewarding. Over time, they may come to see that their union is not about choosing between order and chaos, freedom and responsibility, but about blending them into something stronger. She gives him a reason to stay. He gives her a reason to fly. Together, they remind each other that love, in its purest form, is both anchor and wings. And perhaps that is the secret to their long-term compatibility, not the absence of struggle, but the ability to transform struggle into growth. In the end, if the Gemini man and Virgo woman are willing to adapt, to soften their edges without losing their essence, to honor their differences instead of resenting them, then yes, they can make it in the long run. Not only make it, but thrive, building a partnership that is richer, fuller, and more textured than either could have created alone. It will not be easy, but it will be real. And in the realm of lasting love, that is worth everything. Communication conflict resolution. Communication, the Gemini man's strongest weapon and, at the same time, the Virgo woman's sharpest tool. If love is a house they are building together, then communication is both the bricks and the mortar. It shapes the structure, but it can also crumble if not handled with care. Between these two signs, words become both bridges and barriers, instruments of connection and sparks of conflict. To understand their long-term communication dynamics is to look into the very soul of their relationship. The Gemini man speaks as if words are oxygen, he cannot live without them. He talks, debates, tells stories, jokes, and often throws in half-formed ideas just to see how they sound in the air. For him, words are play, possibility, experimentation. He can argue one side of an issue, then switch and argue the other side just for the thrill of mental gymnastics. This quality makes him magnetic in conversation, a person who can charm, entertain, and stir curiosity in others. Yet it also makes him infuriating to someone who views communication as sacred and practical. The Virgo woman, in sharp contrast, does not waste words. To her, communication is a tool for clarity, for understanding, for finding solutions. She chooses her language carefully, weighs her sentences, and when she speaks, she expects that her words matter. She does not argue for the sake of it. She argues because there is a point to be made, a flaw to be corrected, or a solution waiting to be uncovered. To her, casual banter is fine in light doses, but when it comes to the serious matters of love and life, words are not a playground, they are building blocks. This difference is not small. It shapes the entire dynamic of how they connect and how they fight. Imagine a conflict. The Gemini man, upset over something trivial, brushes it off with humor, throwing in a sarcastic comment or a light-hearted distraction. He doesn't want to sit in discomfort, so he floats above it with levity. But the Virgo woman cannot stand this avoidance. To her, unresolved tension is like a stone in her shoe. It must be removed, analyzed, and addressed before she can move forward. So when he laughs off what she considers serious, she feels dismissed, unheard, and undervalued. To him, she feels heavy, too serious, too insistent on digging into every tiny problem as though love were a math equation. To her, he feels careless, unwilling to do the work of building true intimacy. This mismatch can escalate quickly. She raises her voice with precision, dissecting the issue in detail, presenting evidence of his inconsistency or avoidance. He grows restless, joking in defense, or worse, withdrawing into silence because he feels suffocated by the intensity. She interprets his withdrawal as neglect, while he interprets her intensity as criticism. And so, the cycle begins. Yet here lies the irony. Both of them are brilliant communicators in their own way. He can bring lightness into the heaviest situations. She can bring clarity into the most confusing ones. Their challenge is not that they cannot communicate, it is that they communicate differently. His language is play, hers is precision. His style is improvisation, hers is structure. For them to succeed, they must learn not to impose their methods on each other, but to weave them together into a shared language of love. The key is respect. If the Gemini man can slow down and truly listen, not just to her words but to the care behind them, he will see that her critiques are not attacks but offerings. She critiques because she cares, because she wants improvement, because she sees potential in the relationship and refuses to let it wither. Her insistence on addressing issues is, in its own way, a declaration of love. When he recognizes this, her sharp words soften in his ears, and instead of bracing against them, he can accept them as gifts. For the Virgo woman, the lesson is learning to lighten her grip. Not every problem needs a full dissection. Not every disagreement needs a courtroom trial. If she can add humor into conflict, if she can smile at his attempts to deflect rather than always calling him out, she discovers a kind of freedom. She learns that some issues resolve themselves in laughter, that sometimes letting go is healthier than holding on. When she allows herself to play with him in conversation, to meet his banter with a spark of her own, the heaviness lifts, and suddenly their disagreements feel less like battles and more like dances. Imagine another scene. They are in the middle of an argument about household responsibilities. The Virgo woman has a list, she always has a list, and she is pointing out what hasn't been done. The Gemini man, feeling cornered, makes a joke about being allergic to dish soap. She glares at first, but then, instead of rolling her eyes, she lets herself laugh. The tension breaks. He, in turn, takes the hint and goes to wash the dishes, not because he was criticized into it, but because humor softened the blow. This is how they work when balanced. Her precision ensures problems are named, his playfulness ensures problems do not crush them. Conflict resolution between them, when done well, becomes a blend of grounding and levity. She ensures the issue is real and not forgotten, he ensures the issue does not consume them entirely. Together, they create a style that is healing and refreshing. A way of fighting that still affirms love, a way of disagreeing that still protects respect. Long term, this balance in communication is what will either make or break them. If she digs too deeply, he will fly away. If he avoids too often, she will shut down. But if they meet in the middle, if he agrees to land long enough to be heard, and she agrees to loosen her grip enough to laugh, they will discover that their words are not weapons but tools for building intimacy. In the end, their communication is a paradox. It is their greatest challenge and their greatest strength. It forces them to grow, to stretch, to learn patience and flexibility. The Gemini man learns the art of listening, the discipline of slowing down, the depth of truly connecting. The Virgo woman learns the joy of letting go, the relief of humor, the liberation of imperfection. Together, they discover that love does not require them to speak the same way. It requires them to listen, to adapt, and to respect the language of the other. And when they do, their conflicts stop being storms and start being rain that nourishes the soil of their relationship. They argue, they laugh, they resolve, they grow, and in the end, their words build not walls, but bridges strong enough to carry them through anything. Physical intimate connection. Now let's talk about intimacy, because here lies one of the most delicate yet powerful aspects of the relationship between a Gemini man and a Virgo woman. To speak of their physical connection is not simply to describe passion in a narrow sense, but to understand how body and soul intertwine when two very different temperaments meet in love's most vulnerable territory. At first, their approaches to intimacy can feel mismatched, almost as though they are speaking different dialects of the same language. The Gemini man comes to intimacy with the spirit of an adventurer. For him, physical connection is a playground, a theater, a space where imagination can take form. He is playful, experimental, and constantly looking for variety. He thrives on newness, unpredictability, and the sense that each moment together is a chance to reinvent the story. He doesn't approach intimacy with heavy seriousness. Instead, He wants it to be alive, fun, full of surprises that keep the energy flowing. His greatest fear in this space, as in much of life, is monotony. The Virgo woman, on the other hand, arrives with caution. She is careful, deliberate, even reserved until she feels completely safe and secure. She does not rush into vulnerability without trust, because for her, intimacy is not just physical, it is emotional, spiritual, holistic. She needs to feel seen, respected, and protected before she can surrender fully. At the beginning, this difference can cause tension. He may interpret her caution as coldness or distance, while she may see his playful impulsivity as frivolous, lacking the gravity she associates with love. But here is where the magic begins. Once trust is established, once the Virgo woman feels that her Gemini partner truly values her and will not misuse her vulnerability, she reveals a side of herself that can astonish him. What begins with restraint unfolds into a depth and sensuality that shakes the very core of the relationship. Her passion is not fleeting, it is focused, intentional, precise. She may not be as flamboyant in her expression as he is, but when she opens herself, she does so with a completeness that captivates him. Her love becomes a devotion, her touch a declaration, her attention a gift that cannot be faked or rushed. The Gemini man, used to variety and surface-level thrills, suddenly finds himself encountering something he didn't know he was missing: intensity. He realizes that what the Virgo woman offers in intimacy is not just an act, but an entire presence. She has the ability to focus entirely on him in those moments, to give herself without distraction, to make him feel like the only person in the universe. For a man who often lives scattered, juggling thoughts and energies in multiple directions, this undivided attention is transformative. It grounds him, centers him, and teaches him that passion can be as much about stillness as it is about movement. Over time, their physical relationship becomes a true balance of exploration and devotion. His creativity ensures that their intimacy never grows stale. He brings spontaneity, ideas, and the kind of playful spark that prevents them from slipping into routine. She brings depth, intention, and a steady devotion that ensures their connection is not merely about excitement, but about meaning. He encourages her to loosen up, to embrace the joy of unpredictability, to find freedom in expression. She shows him the richness of slowing down, of savoring each detail, of building intimacy like a fine art rather than a casual adventure. Imagine a scene between them. He surprises her with an impulsive gesture, perhaps a kiss stolen in a moment she did not expect, a sudden embrace that catches her off guard. At first, she stiffens, her instinct to control kicking in. But then, as she sees the sincerity in his eyes, she allows herself to relax into it, and what follows is not just a kiss but a breaking of barriers. Later, in a quieter moment, she takes his hand, slows him down, and leads him into intimacy with a tenderness and thoroughness he has never experienced. For him, this depth feels like discovering hidden treasure. For her, his spontaneity feels like breaking free of invisible chains. Together, they create a rhythm that is unlike either of their individual approaches. It is not purely playful, nor purely serious, it is both. Their intimate connection becomes a dance of contrasts, his airiness with her earthiness, his light with her depth, his spontaneity with her devotion. They learn to meet in the middle, creating an experience that is not only physically satisfying but emotionally enriching. The challenges remain, of course. He must be careful not to treat intimacy as a game, dismissing its deeper resonance, because she will not tolerate frivolity forever. She needs to feel valued, cherished, and respected, not just entertained. Likewise, she must avoid falling into the trap of perfectionism here, too. If she becomes overly critical, nitpicking or withholding affection until conditions are just right, she risks making him feel rejected or stifled. The balance lies in allowing each other to bring their essence to the table without judgment. In the long term, their physical life can become one of their greatest strengths. His creativity keeps things alive, preventing the relationship from turning stale. Her depth ensures that their intimacy is not shallow or fleeting, but layered with meaning. Together, they can explore both the playful and the profound, discovering that true connection does not come from sameness, but from the weaving of differences into something greater than the sum of its parts. In this way, their intimate life mirrors their overall relationship, a constant negotiation between freedom and security, spontaneity and stability. And when they succeed, when they find that perfect balance between adventure and devotion, their physical connection becomes not just an expression of love, but a sanctuary where they both feel fully seen, fully alive, and profoundly connected. Shared values, life goals. Here's where the real tests of compatibility show themselves, not in fleeting moments of passion or witty conversation, but in the slow and steady unfolding of life's bigger picture. For a Gemini man and a Virgo woman, the question of shared values and life goals often becomes the arena where their differences either fracture the bond or transform into the very glue that holds them together. To understand their long-term potential, one must look at how these two approach stability, ambition, and purpose. The Virgo woman typically dreams of creating a life that is grounded, practical, and secure. She envisions a well-structured home, clear financial planning, goals that can be measured and achieved step by step, and a future where each action today builds toward a safer tomorrow. She is not reckless with her dreams. She prefers them tangible, realistic, and within reach. She finds comfort in routines, in knowing what's ahead, in reducing uncertainty. To her, this is not boring. It's love expressed in responsibility, in making sure that she and her partner have a foundation strong enough to weather life's storms. The Gemini man, on the other hand, views life as an open road rather than a carefully plotted map. His goals are not always linear or even concrete. They often revolve around exploration, experience, and knowledge. He thrives on novelty, on trying new things, on gathering stories rather than accumulating possessions. To him, life's meaning is not found in predictability but in adventure, not in security but in freedom. He is rarely content with the same rhythm day after day, for his restless spirit demands variety, spontaneity, and the possibility of reinvention. At first glance, their goals appear to clash. She may look at him and see someone unreliable, someone who flits from one interest to another without staying long enough to build something lasting. He may look at her and see someone too rigid, too serious, too confined by rules and expectations. This difference can feel like a chasm, threatening to divide them whenever discussions about the future arise. But hidden beneath these surface-level disagreements lies a common thread, one that, if discovered, can bind them together in ways neither anticipated. They both value growth. For the Virgo woman, growth comes through order, discipline, and self-improvement. She finds fulfillment in perfecting systems, in making life cleaner, healthier, and more efficient. For the Gemini man, growth comes through change, through learning, through exposing himself to the unknown. He finds fulfillment in expansion, in broadening his horizons, in refusing to let himself stagnate. While the methods differ, her through consistency, him through variety, the underlying drive is the same. Both are unwilling to remain stagnant. Both seek to evolve. When they recognize this shared value, the tension between them transforms into opportunity. She helps him stay grounded, reminding him that some goals require perseverance, that certain dreams only blossom when nurtured consistently over time. He, in turn, helps her step outside of her carefully constructed comfort zone, reminding her that not everything can be controlled, that sometimes the best opportunities are found when plans are set aside. She gives him stability, he gives her wings. Together, they learn that a truly fulfilling life requires both roots and flight. Imagine them sitting together, planning their future. She may bring out a spreadsheet of financial goals, listing savings accounts, investments, and timelines for big purchases like a house. He may sigh at first, feeling the weight of structure pressing down on his free-spirited shoulders. But then he suggests something unexpected. What if we save for the house, but also plan a yearly trip somewhere we've never been? She hesitates, worried about expenses, but then realizes that adventure, too, is part of building a meaningful life. The compromise is born, a foundation of security, flavored with the spice of exploration. This is how they begin to merge their values into a shared vision. Over time, their partnership can create a life that is both stable and exciting. The Virgo woman provides the structure. the home that feels safe, the steady rhythm of routines, the careful planning that ensures nothing essential is neglected. The Gemini man provides the spark, the ideas, the adventures, the unexpected detours that keep life from ever becoming dull. Together, they build not just a house, but a home that is alive with both order and energy, a space where predictability and surprise coexist in harmony. The key to sustaining this balance lies in mutual respect. She must learn that his desire for adventure is not irresponsibility but curiosity, a genuine hunger for life. He must learn that her desire for security is not rigidity but love, a way of ensuring their shared future is protected. When each sees the value in the other's approach, what once felt like conflict begins to feel like complement. Challenges will always exist. He may wander too far into spontaneity, forgetting commitments, leaving her feeling abandoned. She may dig too deep into perfectionism, clinging to rules and routines so tightly that he feels suffocated. But when these moments arise, their shared value of growth becomes their compass. They are both capable of adapting, of learning, of recalibrating. For him, adaptation means slowing down sometimes, committing to consistency when it matters most. For her, adaptation means loosening control, letting go of the need for everything to be perfect, and embracing the beauty of imperfection. In this way, their differences do not weaken them, they fortify them. The Virgo woman teaches the Gemini man that freedom has more meaning when there is something solid to return to, that adventure is sweeter when there's a safe harbor waiting at home. The Gemini man teaches the Virgo woman that security is not the same as stagnation, that a safe life can still be vibrant, alive, and full of wonder. Ultimately, when they unite their perspectives, they craft a vision of life that neither could have built alone. It is a vision that holds both security and spontaneity, both discipline and joy, both home and horizon. Their shared values are not about identical goals, but about complementary growth. And when they embrace this truth, they discover that their journey together is not a compromise but a collaboration, a life that feels both grounded and exhilarating, safe yet endlessly alive. Final thoughts. So, are Gemini men and Virgo women destined for everlasting love? The stars, as always, do not hand out guarantees. What they do provide is not certainty but possibility, not an unshakable promise but a constellation of patterns, a map that can guide us toward understanding if we are willing to read it with patience. And this particular pairing, Gemini man and Virgo woman, is far from the easiest. It is not the smooth, effortless alignment of two souls who instantly move in perfect rhythm. Instead, it is a relationship that demands patience, compromise, and above all, the willingness to embrace differences as strengths rather than flaws. The Gemini man arrives in love like a gust of wind, curious, restless, playful, and ever in motion. He is the dreamer with wings, his eyes forever scanning horizons, hungry for the next adventure, the next spark of novelty, the next story to add to his ever-growing collection. The Virgo woman, by contrast, steps into love with the grounding energy of the earth. She is the healer with roots, precise, thoughtful, intentional. She is not swayed by momentary whims. She seeks stability, meaning, and the kind of love that builds over time. When these two forces collide, air and earth, the result is rarely predictable. Sometimes it is chaos, sometimes it is stillness, but often, when nurtured carefully, it becomes a rare balance that neither could achieve alone. What makes their connection beautiful is precisely what makes it challenging. He thrives on change, she thrives on order. He is energized by unpredictability, she is calmed by structure. He can be careless with details, while she cannot ignore them. She can become overly critical, while he shrugs off criticism with laughter or avoidance. These contrasts create tension, yes, but they also create the possibility of growth. For what is love, if not the chance to evolve into more than we were before? The Virgo woman, in her quiet wisdom, teaches the Gemini man the importance of depth. She shows him that joy is not only found in fleeting adventures but also in consistency, in staying the course long enough to watch seeds grow into trees. She shows him that sometimes freedom does not mean running away, but rather standing still, choosing to remain, to commit, to invest in something greater than his restless heart ever thought possible. The Gemini man, with his irrepressible spirit, teaches the Virgo woman the importance of lightness. He shows her that perfection is an illusion, that life is not meant to be endlessly polished and organized. He helps her laugh at the small imperfections, reminding her that beauty often hides in the cracks of impermanence, in the surprises she never thought to expect. Together, they embody a paradox. Two souls who might frustrate each other endlessly if they cling too tightly to their own ways, but who can enrich each other immeasurably if they open themselves to change. Their love story is not about sameness, it is about complement. It is about creating a bridge between chaos and order, spontaneity and stability, dreams and plans. It is about finding, within their differences, the possibility of balance. Imagine their relationship as a dance. At times, he spins too quickly, twirling in directions she cannot predict, while she stands firm, feet planted, insisting on rhythm and precision. At first, they trip over each other. But as time goes on, if they learn to listen, to the music, to each other, they begin to create a choreography uniquely theirs. Sometimes he leads, carrying her into movements she never imagined. Sometimes she leads, grounding him, ensuring he doesn't drift too far off beat. And when the balance is right, their dance becomes mesmerizing, the perfect harmony of airlifting earth and earth steadying air. The truth is, lasting love between a Gemini man and a Virgo woman is not guaranteed. It never is with any pairing. But what makes this relationship remarkable is that when it does work, it is not because they are similar, but because they are different. Their union becomes proof that love is not about finding someone who mirrors us perfectly, but about finding someone who balances us, who challenges us, who forces us to see life through a new lens. It becomes proof that the most profound connections often arise not from ease but from effort, from the willingness to learn and unlearn, to bend without breaking, to grow together. In the end, their love story is one of transformation. The Virgo woman, who once clung to control, learns to loosen her grip and embrace the unpredictable joy of simply being. The Gemini man, who once ran from commitment, learns that there is a freedom deeper than flight, the freedom of knowing you are exactly where you belong. They may not always walk in step, but they walk in the same direction, carrying with them a love that is both fragile and resilient, playful and serious, chaotic and calm. And maybe, just maybe, that is the magic of Gemini and Virgo. Two souls dancing on the delicate edge between chaos and order, two hearts discovering that love, in its purest form, is not about choosing one over the other, but about weaving both into a story that is uniquely, beautifully theirs.